But my beats, they are hard.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the BCSN Sports Wrap, our week number 11 wrap-up show. Brian Fulford and AD Drew here, and I tell you what, AD, this past Saturday, I tell you, it started early in the day and ran into the night, but two words could best describe Saturday in black college football, and it would be upset Saturday. How you doing, my friend?
I was going to use Trap
House Saturday?
Trap House Saturday. Everybody got caught the trap thing. Teams that should not have won because teams were looking ahead to next week.
Very well said. We had big-time underdogs winning outright. We had games that went into overtime with let's just say some unexplainable endings, some shocking endings, some missed field goals, some made field goals. We had games that we had some fantastic comebacks and some just flat out dominating performances. We know what our SIAC and CIAA championships look like, and guess what, AD? Surprise! They exactly what they were last year. We want to remind you to take a look at or follow us on Twitter at MyBCSN, the number 1. That's the Black College Sports Network, on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook, our Black College Sports Network page. You also can find our BCSN Sports Wrap Facebook page as well. Every now and then we may post something on that as well. And then, of course, you can find AD and I, our personal Twitter feeds. AD, he is at BCSN Drew. That's DREW. And for me, you can find me at DRB365. And I guess, AD, the one other thing that I guess we'll have to talk about is the cloudy, muddied water, or I guess the impending debate of the Black College National Champion has also been thrown into a loop. So we got plenty to talk about. Hopefully we won't take too long in doing it. But, AD, are you ready to jump into this?
And we've got a 5-hour show. We're going to try to cram in less than 2.
Oh, you had me worried there for a second. I'm like, what? A 5-hour show? Holy cow.
This is one of those shows we could go on and on with everything that went on this particular weekend, Brian. So we're going to do our best to try to get in and get out.
Yes, but I promise I'm going to do a better job of conducting the ship here and try to get us through these pieces as quickly as possible. Okay, so we debated. Yes, we debated back and forth here trying to figure out how we were going to start the show, because we could start with any number of conferences. We could throw a dart at the wall, and that conference would be good enough to start with. But I figure we're going to start with the big top dog upsets. Since it was upset Saturday, we have to start with the two biggest upsets of the weekend, and I'm just going to talk about them both here, and then we'll go one by one. And what I'm talking about is what happened in the MEAC. In the MEAC, we had North Carolina A&T traveling to Baltimore, Maryland to take on Morgan State, and they were upset, losing 22-16 in a game that North Carolina A&T never, I repeat, never led. never led this game. Had at one point in the fourth quarter trailed 16-13, but they would end up losing on a touchdown by DeAndre Harris, who would take a 13-play, 91-yard drive that gave Morgan State a touchdown. I guess you could call it an insurance touchdown with 3:27 to play. You know, and that pretty much would seal the fate for North Carolina A&T. I guess there was A&T did kind of rally after that. They did manage to get a field goal, which cut it to 22-16. There was an onside kick that they actually recovered, so there was a little bit of life. But then Khalil Carter, he ended up with 3 incompletions, and then there was a Rico Kennedy sack for a 7-yard loss, and that was all she wrote. And Morgan State would go into a victory formation. Do you find it, I don't know if ironic is the word, AD, that it was Morgan State who last year traveled to Greensboro, North Carolina on a Thursday night, ended the Aggies, it was like a 15-game winning streak. They had a nice little conference streak going on, but essentially, I mean, it was a game that didn't count on the MEAC standings, but they ended their streak last year, and so this year was kind of maybe it was one of those games to say, hey, last year wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, and I've seen this Morgan State team play under first-year coach Tyrone Wheatley, and you know they're going to be a force to reckon with in the MEAC for years to come. And they've got a tough running game, Brian. And anytime you can rush the ball and keep away from a good team and what they like to call shorten the game, you have a chance if you don't turn the ball over.
Yeah, no doubt. So that was I don't even know how to describe how you go into that game and lose that game. I don't know. Let's see. In terms of point spreads on that game, you know, we were just talking about the point spread on that. North Carolina A&T was a 24-point favorite when the line first opened. At a lot of places, it got down to as low as 22.5, meaning that, you know, there were some people putting money on. Usually when it goes down like that, that means people are putting money on. I believe they're putting money on A&T if it goes down. The over/under was 48.5. So I mean, if you were playing the total, you definitely cashed on that. There was I didn't see what the money line was, so it's not like, you know, if you'd have put $100. I would imagine if there was a place that actually had a money line, it was probably over 500 plus 500. Meaning if you put $100 down, you won 500. But this was by far the biggest upset point spread wise of the season, and you know, well, let's go to Bethune because we can talk about both here in just a second. The other big upset that happened, and then we're also, as that's happening, AD, at the same time we're scoreboard watching, and we're seeing that Bethune-Cookman, who's traveling to Dover, Delaware, we see that what's happening against Delaware State. Oh, they're just losing to Delaware State. Again, another game that Bethune-Cookman never led. They were down by as much as 16-0 in going into the second half, and Delaware State would actually give up a couple of touchdowns to Bethune-Cookman. But they did manage to hold on, and Delaware State ended up snapping a 6-game losing streak against Bethune-Cookman. The last time that they beat Bethune was 2008. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's 2008. I mean, some of the kids on your team, I don't think were even in high school yet. By the time,
Brian, they were barely in elementary school in 2008. You're talking 11 years ago.
Right. One of the best performances of the year by Delaware State's defense. I mean, just the fact that you had them shut out. This is a team that, you know, Delaware State was on a 7-game losing streak. They were 0-5 or 0-6, in the MEAC coming into this game. Give some credit to Thomas Bertrand Hudon. He rushed for a career best 133 yards and had a touchdown as the Hornets defense held Bethune-Cookman to 257 total yards, which was 73 yards below their season average entering the game. Delaware State's defense had 3 fourth-down stops in this game, including 2 of them in the fourth quarter. So it was definitely a big day for Delaware State. And look, now it sets up this – I guess I should also point out, AD, that, we mentioned the point spread for North Carolina A&T and Morgan. Well, Bethune-Cookman opened as a 17-point favorite over Delaware State. It dropped to as low as 15, and the money line was Bethune was a minus 800 favorite. Delaware State was plus 550. So if you had bet $100 on Del State, you would have walked out of there with $5, $550, and it would have been a great weekend for you and whomever. I don't think anyone could have seen this coming. I mean, we practically didn't talk about these games because of the fact that we really didn't think this would be a challenge. And lo and behold, the 2 biggest upsets of the weekend.
And I'm going to call you out on these games, right? I'm going to call you out on these 2 games. When we started looking at the week's lineup, I had put both of these games in on our initial log of games to potentially talk about because of the future playoff implications. And you was like, and somebody said, no, these games are blowouts. We don't even need to worry about these. We'll just mention them. Well, lo and behold.
Well, just to clarify, I did. Okay, yes, you're right, but I did also say that these games should not be. These games will be double-digit spreads, which they were, and both teams should cover both games, and they should have. I mean, you're
0 for 2 on that one.
Well, hey, look, I'm 0 for 2. We had, our number 3 and number 4 ranked team in our poll, who were sitting at, both of them are sitting at 6-2, 4-1 in the conference. Both of them making strong pushes towards representing the MEAC in the Celebration Bowl. Actually, they're playing each other next weekend in what was supposed to be a game that would really shape what the last week of the season looks like. And the fact that both of them lost still makes that game relevant, crazy as it sounds. But what it did, it took both teams, in my opinion, out of the bigger picture, which is any sort of claim that either of these teams wanted to make or thought that they could make towards a Black College National Championship, I think are both gone. What's your take, AD, on Bethune-Cookman and A&T, that loss, the MEAC, and just that larger picture, those 2 teams in the discussion towards the Black College National Championship?
Bryan, if either one of these teams claim themselves as the Black College National Champions, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. First of all, Bryan, there could be potentially be a 3-loss team in the Celebration Bowl representing the MEAC.
Well, no. There will be at least a 3-loss team representing.
A 3-conference loss team.
Well,
yes.
You're right.
of these teams, whoever wins next week, and then say we get more chaos the final week of the season with the teams losing, you could have a team with 3 conference losses representing the MEAC in the Celebration Bowl. There's no way in HE double hockey sticks that you can proclaim yourself as a national champion with 3 conference losses.
I don't think anyone will proclaim themselves Black College National Championships champions.
The door is open for Bowie State to make a strong claim for the Black College National Championship now, Brian, in lieu of FAMU sanctions. And FAMU will lose votes because of their sanctions. Let's be realistic.
I don't know about that.
Some people are not going to vote for FAM because they're ineligible for the Celebration Bowl. Let's assume that. There's no other team on the Division I level that sticks out heads and shoulders above the rest, where if you say they win, they're the national champions. I told you Alcorn was flawed. We know Southern is flawed. And the BIAC, which we've said was the best conference of the 2 conferences, has now become flawed.
Well, look, here's what – okay, so I think that the voters or the people who are putting the polls together, and this is where I think we'll have to go back and look at sort of recent history, and I think there's enough examples over the past decade that we can look at in Tuskegee and Winston-Salem State. I think those are the only 2 Division II schools to win a Black College National Championship this decade. Can your quick memory, can you recall anyone else that I might be missing?
No, but I can do the research while you talk.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's something that we can bring up maybe going into later in the week, but you don't have to go look at it right now. But what I was saying is what we should do is look at the circumstances around Tuskegee and Winston-Salem State the year that they won. Because I'll tell you, there's enough polls that put it like this. What I wanted to say is when I heard you talking about people not voting for FAMU, if FAMU's situation has been known for the last at least 5 weeks. If there were people who weren't going to move FAMU into the number 1 spot, they would have already started doing that. They wouldn't when they beat North Carolina A&T, everybody but the only people who didn't move them to number 1 were Jay Walker and the Black College Sports page. And they put Alcorn State number 1. Now that Alcorn State has lost, and that's something we'll talk about here shortly, I can't see any – now, this will go into your theory here. If somebody, Bowie State, jumps all the way up in the Black College Sports page over FAMU, then there's your first indication that somebody's going to penalize FAMU for not playing in the Celebration Bowl. If you see Jay Walker move somebody, and according to his power rankings, the next 3 teams around FAMU all lost. The only other team in his Power 5 that he might jump over FAMU might be a Grambling, might be Southern. And I can't see him doing that. So all the other polls have FAMU at number 1, including ours. So unless somebody all of a sudden starts penalizing FAMU, they've got Howard upcoming, and then they got Bethune-Cookman. If that's the only way I see your scenario happening in a combined poll. You know, I mean, we have our poll Division II and FCS. Dr. Kenyatta Cavill inside the HBCU Sports Lab, he has 2 different polls, and I think there's a reason for that. And again, short of Bowie State, I said 2 wins. Isn't that what I said earlier last week? How many wins did I tell you they needed to have? 2.
You said 2 wins. Now it's down to 1.
I said 2 wins. No, I'm still holding on to 2. I really am. I'm still holding on to 2, and I'll tell you why. Because I think the 1 is going to be a game that they should easily win, and it will be at home. And now the 2 is the bigger, better test because it'll either be a Lenoir-Rhyne or a Valdosta State. And I just don't know if those schools match up. See, the problem is Bowie has not played, and this isn't their fault, so I'm going to preface this. How can you compare Division II versus Division I when you haven't seen it on the field? You saw Kentucky State beat Jackson State and Robert Morris.
Yeah. And Bowie plays a schedule that's favorable for them for going to the Division II playoffs, as well as they should play a schedule like that.
Yes.
And you can only play the schedule that's in front of you. But for the schedule that's in front of them and the strength of schedule that Bowie has in front of them, they have performed tremendously. The last time, Brian, that a Division II team was primarily voted the Black College National Champions, and I'm talking about in the major polls where they combine both Division I and Division II teams in a poll, would have been 2012 when Winston-Salem State went 14-1 and made that deep playoff run under head coach Cornell Maynor. Excuse me for.
And they finished as the runner-up in the D2 national championship, in the national championship game.
Prior to that, it would have been Tuskegee, and you hit both the teams, and that would have been in 2007. When Tuskegee was primarily the Black College National Champion in both major polls, with Delaware State being the Division I team that garnered votes in some polls. And that 2012 14-1 Winston-Salem State team, Arkansas Pine Bluff was Arkansas Pine Bluff was national champion in one poll. Bethune was champion in another poll. Pine Bluff was 10-2. Bethune was 9-3. And Tennessee State was 8-3. And they were crowned national champions in a single poll.
Okay, so my point.
2012.
My point. So there you go. So our closest. So at 2007, 2012. And this is so let me see. 7 years ago, we had a team that was undefeated going into the playoffs, Winston-Salem State. And then 12 years prior to that, 12 years ago, 5 years prior to that, you had Tuskegee, correct?
Right, and Tuskegee was still playing in the Turkey Day Classic at that point in time.
So they weren't even eligible to play in the playoffs.
Correct. And went 12-0.
And so who finished second?
I don't know who finished second in the polls. I just have the champions in front of me, Brian.
Okay.
But Delaware State was the ones that just considered FCS schools. Delaware State was the national champions that particular year.
Right. So look, college football for years, has had multiple champions, and that's sort of the debate and the beauty of college football. You're going to interrupt. Go ahead.
I would say in 2000, Tuskegee received the majority of the polls, also as national champions at 12-0. And that was under Rick Comegy then, with Grambling being the team that received the FCS national champion.
So Tuskegee didn't go to the playoffs that year either?
No, Tuskegee just started going to the playoffs in the teens.
So you're telling me 3 times in this millennia, in the past 20 years, 3 times, you had a Division II team even be considered, and I guess we can't say it was undisputed, that they were considered a national Black College national champion, and 2 of those teams finished the regular season unbeaten. Obviously, Winston-Salem State went into the playoffs unbeaten, but they finished their regular season unbeaten. That's what you're telling me, right? Was Tuskegee unbeaten in 7?
Yeah, Tuskegee was 12-0 and 7-12. I mean 7 and 2000.
Okay. Okay. So in each of those, so that's the bar right now. So obviously, for Bowie to be considered, they have to go unbeaten, and that's why I said 2. Because let's say they win the CIAA, they'll be 11-0. They win a playoff game, they're 12-0. But because FAMU, if they go unbeaten, would have won 10 straight games, and most people don't count the FCS check game because we just understand what that is, right?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. They would be 10-0 against FCS or lower division level, that, and actually you can even say they're unbeaten versus FCS schools. We just keep it simple like that,
They've got 10 of those. They will finish 10-1. 9 of those wins will be against FCS schools, with Fort Valley being the Division II school that they played. Right,
9-0 against FCS schools. Show me the last FCS school to do that and not win the Black College National Championship. I don't think they're out there. And then also, here's another reason why I think you can't discount FAMU. And I'll move off of this point. This isn't the NCAA sanction. This is Florida A&M that made the decision to sanction themselves. The NCAA did not, they didn't ban FAMU from the playoffs. Maybe they would have, who knows, but they didn't. This was FAMU that actually made the proactive, or whatever, for whatever reason, they made the decision to do what? To sanction themselves and sort of make themselves ineligible for the playoffs,
Correct. Well, one other thing while we're go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say one other thing, Brian. If FAMU does win the Black College National Championship, that would tie them for number 2 all time in Black College National Championships. They would be tied with Grambling at 15, trailing Tennessee State by only 1.
Okay. Is there anything we left out and didn't talk about we didn't talk about them. Okay, so I was gonna throw this scenario at you as it relates to the MEAC. You mentioned before we got into talking about the Black College National Championship debate as it relates to FCS versus D2. You mentioned that we could have a 3-loss conference team playing in the Celebration Bowl. Well, I'll tell you, the one team that may avoid that, and probably I'm going to say is my favorite team to avoid that, is South Carolina State. Here's why. Let's just say Bethune-Cookman beats North Carolina A&T in Week 12, upcoming. Instantly, A&T has 3 conference losses, 4th loss on the season. Season essentially is over. Bethune then goes into the FAMU game in the driver's seat, but South Carolina State is lurking there with 2 losses as well. I think South Carolina State plays, they play North Carolina Central coming up, and then they finish with Norfolk. 2 teams that they should not look by. Let's just be clear about that. They should not look past Central and Norfolk State, especially not the way Norfolk State is playing. But Bethune potentially plays their rival Florida A&M, who is so hungry to beat them, they probably can't even sleep at night. When they beat Bethune-Cookman, that puts a 3rd loss on them, right?
Correct.
Who's still sitting there with 2 losses, and who would probably jump into first place unofficially or officially, whatever, and get the bid to the Celebration Bowl. That's a 2-loss South Carolina State. So, to me, that's the team that I think is I'm going to circle South Carolina State and say watch out for South Carolina State, because I think there's a strong probability, a strong possibility that they could find themselves in a nice little situation.
Well, other teams that are remaining with a shot at the Celebration Bowl, South Carolina State by far has the easiest schedule on paper.
Yeah, okay. I mean, on paper, yeah. I mean, because, they don't have to play one of the top 3. But I will challenge – I'll just say Norfolk State is playing about as good as anybody right now. Just to mention them, we did mention that as a game that we spotlighted. I didn't take your advice and go with the 2 games that we just talked about, but instead we went to talking about Norfolk State and North Carolina Central, and I thought that would be something to talk about because of the Central perspective, but they ended up losing on homecoming to Norfolk State 28-21. The Spartans registered 8 sacks, one leading to a touchdown in the third quarter. And Norfolk State ended up winning. I'm sorry, what did I say the score was? It wasn't 28-21. It was 38-21.
Yes, it's got 28-21 on the BAC website.
I know, but then in their article they say 38-21. Somebody give me a score here. Gosh dog it. What was the correct score here? I'm gonna go to a second source here. You can't trust. When you can't trust the website,
the conference site.
Yeah, when you can't trust, I'm gonna go to old Google, and Google tells me it was Norfolk State 38, North Carolina Central 21. I didn't think it was as close as 28-21 anyway.
And so does owner didn't have it at 38-21.
Okay, well, good. Well, Norfolk State now is 4-6 overall, 3-3 in the MEAC. It's their second straight win and the third win in the last 4 games. It's the second time Norfolk State has beaten North Carolina Central, second time in a row, and now North Carolina Central dropped to 4-3, 3-3 overall. How crazy! I told you, had North Carolina Central won that game, they would be sitting at where? They'd be sitting right in the mix with A&T, Bethune-Cookman, and South Carolina State with 2 losses. But you blew it. You blew it, Central. You had an opportunity, but you blew it on homecoming. Norfolk State, coming off their first shutout since 2012 and last week's win over Morgan State. The defense for Norfolk State was, as mentioned earlier with the 8 sacks, pretty ferocious in this ball game. And so now, Norfolk State, be aware, South Carolina State, end of the season, got to be awake, stay woke. The other score, South Carolina State just took Howard to the woodshed like everyone else has done. Almost everyone has done, I'm sure. 62-21. We mentioned the news regarding Ron Prince. Did you ever clarify what you thought you saw regarding Ron Prince, or are you still?
Yes, I did. This was a report by Jay Walker. That Ron Prince is out at Howard, out for quote unquote bullying the players is according to Jay Walker. He said there was a lot of bullying going on, and
well, but see, I wonder, is this him saying? I remember the report came out that he was suspended indefinitely. That was the terminology used by the Howard Athletic Administration. The Howard Athletic Department said he was suspended indefinitely as they were doing their investigations, and so that I have not, as great, I know Jay Walker is an alum, a well-respected alum, But until I see somebody from Howard University say Ron Prince has been relieved of his duties as the head coach, I don't think it's fair for us to say that he's out. You know what I'm saying? I think let's keep it real. You know, I think we owe it to accuracy to be accurate.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. Yeah.
Yeah, you have it right.
Okay. All right. Let's take a break, AD. When we come back, we got to talk about the SWAC and all of the craziness that's going on, as not quite as chaotic as what we saw happen in the MEAC, but I think it still makes for some interesting headlines and some interesting upcoming games over the last couple of weeks of the season. Nothing is clear anymore in the SWAC. And then, of course, later on we're going to get to talking about the rematches in the SIAC and the CIAA, as well as the crazy ending of the Virginia State-Virginia Union game. You're listening and watching the Sports Wrap, the HBCU BCSN week number 11 wrap-up show. We'll be back right after these words.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loop machine.
For you at more than 325 hotels around the world. Book today at DoubleTree.com. DoubleTree by Hilton, where the little things mean everything.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
It didn't. What happened was, a gentleman wanted to do the Black College Sports Network in partnership with the HBCU for these black colleges.
Absolutely.
And it would have educated the Black College Sports Network. This is what he wanted to do. That would have educated a lot of black kids. Okay. That was the real reason why I got into it, was when I saw what happened with the Black College Sports Network, which I
Q Time is a classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap, our week number 11 wrap-up show. Brian Fulford, that's me. AD Drew, that's him.
That's me.
AD. And we just finished up talking a little bit about the MEAC and the big upsets there. Let's move over to the SWAC, Southwestern Athletic Conference, and the game that let's talk about the game we spotlighted, and then we'll get to the game that I originally had wanted us to spotlight because it featured two top 5 teams in our poll. And we kind of glossed over it, and I felt bad about it after the fact, as I sometimes do when you listen to a show again. But anyway, it is what it is. It turned out to be a great game. But let's talk about the game that we did talk about, that we wanted to talk about. Alabama A&M taking on Jacksonville State. Jackson State coming into the ball game, winners of 3 in a row. AD, you had said it. Jackson State, controlled their own destiny coming into this ball game, correct?
That is correct, Brian. And
coming into the ball game,
did not answer the door.
No, not at all. Alabama A&M is in this is the 4th game of a very interesting 5-game stretch for Alabama A&M, where they played Grambling State. They lost that game. Then they had the Magic City Classic game they won in triple overtime. Then they had to travel to Southern for their homecoming, and they lost the game on a late touchdown by Southern, but they also lost on the heels of they had the ball in their hands in the final seconds of the game, and they took a sack, so they had an opportunity late in the ball game, ended up losing by 4. And now they've got Jackson State at home, and then I think next week they play Alcorn State. So, it's a tough 5-game stretch for Alabama A&M, and they've been kind of up and down. They haven't really put 2 great wins together in a row, and so we didn't really know what was going to happen in this game, but we knew that, if anything, we were going to see a great performance, and that's what Alabama A&M gives us, man. They give us some of the best fourth quarters. I'm going to say this, AD, and write this down or mark this, and we'll come back to talk this as we do sort of a wrap-up show. I don't think any team has given us better fourth quarters in winning performances or even just scoring-wise as Alabama A&M has. And on the converse side, I don't think any team has had a tougher time winning games in the fourth quarter than Clark Atlanta. So just remember that as we talk about, as when we get ready to do our wrap-up show at the end or for the season wrap-up show. But Alabama A&M, they've won 5 of the 6. Actually coming to this game, 4 of their 5 wins required them to overcome a fourth quarter deficit, and this game would be no different as Alabama A&M would go into the start of the fourth quarter trailing 30-20 to Jackson State, and this is a game in which in that fourth quarter, Alabama A&M would score a couple of touchdowns very early in the fourth quarter. One, a Jordan Bentley touchdown to cut that 10-point deficit to 3. Then they turn around and get a fumble recovery, a scoop and score by Marcus Cushion that would put them up 34-30. But hold on, not so fast on the ensuing drive. And the next drive after that, Jackson State would put 2 consecutive scores together as they would go up 37-34, and then with about 5 minutes to go, Jalen Jones would have a 51-yard run on a 3-play, 72-yard drive that would put them up 43-34. And you would think, what would you think? The game might be over, might be just enough for Jackson State to get a win. Right, AD? Because we were watching the score on this game, right?
Yeah, we watched a lot of scores, and it made for an interesting day in the producer chair that I was sitting in while we were on the Edward Waters Savannah State broadcast. And if you just happen to be watching that broadcast, you probably heard my voice in the background as I was yelling out scores and to the guys, because sometimes the play was so exciting I just couldn't write it down. I had to yell it out as it was as the plays were going on, and I've had about 4 or 5 different screens opened up on my Mac that I was using there during the game, and it was just a fun day to be doing football. We were broadcasting the game. We were watching about 5 other games, and people in the booth. We were watching some FBS games and saw the upsets on the FBS side also. It was just a great fun day, Brian.
So Alabama A&M trailing 43-34 with 4:59 remaining. That's when Akil Glass decided to do what he does, and right now I think he is the hands down. He is the front runner, in my opinion, for the SWAC Player of the Year. Glass would connect with. I said the favorite. Now, I mean, if he were a favorite, I would say he's maybe at plus 200, plus 250. I think there's maybe another guy or two who might be close to him.
There's a quarterback over at Southern who may have something to say about that.
Ooh, I think he's a little further down. I would put.
I'm sorry, Alcorn.
Yeah, I would say Alcorn, and I'll tell you what, don't sleep on Grambling's quarterback, who we'll get to in a moment. I think both of them are in contention as well. But anyway, Glass would connect with Abdul Fattah Ibrahim for 54 yards to pull Alabama A&M within 2 points with the 2-point conversion as well, 43-41. The defense would get a stop on Jackson State's next possession, and then it would be Akil Glass time as he would connect with Ryan Stoves on an 8-play, 63-yard drive that would be capped off with a 32-yard touchdown with 25 seconds left. The drive only took 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Alabama A&M would go up 48-43, and that is how the game would end. An unbelievable comeback. I mean, you're basically down 9 points, 43-34, with 5 minutes to go, and you put together 2 scoring drives. Unbelievable. Akil Glass was his spectacular self, 25 of 40, 410 yards. That is a season high. And he's been putting up some high 300-yard games, AD. But this time he finally broke over the 400-yard mark. 4 touchdowns again. I think, don't quote me here, that is his at least 4th or 5th 4-touchdown game. I got to go back and check, but I think that is at least his 4th. It might be his 5th 4-touchdown performance. He broke, in doing so, he broke an Alabama A&M record. He broke Tracy Kendall's previous record for single-season touchdown passes with 26 and a single-season passing yards, which was 2,886. Glass now has reached over the 3,000-yard mark, and he has 29 touchdowns on the season. So great single-season statistics for him. Ibrahim finished with a season-high 203 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Jordan Bentley rushed for 132 yards and a touchdown. I tell you, man, and he passed the 1,000-yard mark, Bentley did. Alabama A&M, man, they are just fun to watch on offense. But all in all, Jackson State, one more note here for Jackson State AD, and I'll let you jump in here. Jackson State, 581 total yards of offense, 361 of them came rushing. So, I mean, a great day statistically for Jackson State, but they just couldn't close it at the end of the ball game. AD, your thoughts?
That was the story of Jackson State earlier this year, and it looks like that it has returned. For Alabama A&M, can we get some consistency with the Bulldogs? I mean, like you said earlier, they have not been able to put together 2 or 3 victories in a row this entire season. And if there's ever a time for them to go on the streak, now is the time, with their next game being against Alcorn. And that will be for control of the SWAC East.
Yeah, definitely. And the reason that is for control of the SWAC East is because Alcorn State went on the road to take on Grambling. This was our only top 5 matchup of the weekend. Alcorn State sits at number 2 in our top 5 D1 poll. Grambling just came into the poll at number 5, and the game was being played at Grambling, and Alcorn would look, a winners of 5 in a row. Grambling had won 4 in a row, and it would be an upset of sorts, if you want to call it an upset. I don't know if you want to call it an upset or not, but Grambling this time finds a way to beat Alcorn State in overtime with a final score of 19-16 in the ball game, as Alcorn State wins the 50th career victory for Broderick Fobbs in his, I believe it's his 6 seasons at Grambling. And, Grambling now moves to 3-2 in the conference in the SWAC West, just a game behind Southern now. And then, as you said, Alcorn State, who was sitting quite nicely at unbeaten 4-0, now sitting at 4-1, and they, it's not so clear for them, as it was coming into the contest, because they now sit just a half game ahead of Alabama State, Alabama State is 4-2 in the conference. They are a full game ahead of Alabama A&M now, who is 3-2. Jackson State's 3-2. So, it muddies up the water, but it's a great win for Grambling. I mean, Grambling now, they have the longest win streak in the SWAC, AD, and I didn't pick Grambling. I thought that they would be in the hunt for this game, but I didn't think that Alabama, or Alcorn State rather, was gonna give this game over to them, and I don't think that's what happened. I think Grambling just played great defense, doing what they do. Got a couple of interceptions on Felix Harper, and Grambling's defense just showed up to play. And now Grambling's the hot team in the SWAC, wouldn't you say?
Oh, Grambling is definitely the hot team in the SWAC, along with Southern is probably the most consistent team, if you can call a team in the SWAC consistent. It's kind of tough, but Grambling is the winner of 5 in a row. They're hot. No better way to put it.
Here's the thing about playing at home. This is the important thing about playing at home. Alcorn State has not lost a home game this year. They're 5-0 at home. Grambling is now 3-0 at home. Southern is now 4-0 at home. The Bayou Classic, which is in a few weeks, unfortunately that's a neutral site game. But the only thing now, Grambling has a game on the road at Mississippi Valley State, which, all respect to the Delta Devils, they should win that game. The Delta Devils, bless their heart, they're sitting at, I was trying to pull up their standings here, 2-7 overall, 1-4. Yeah, 1-4 in the conference. So it's like Grambling will be a favorite, put it like that. They'll be a favorite to win that ball game, and then it opens up the Bayou Classic, and Southern. Now, the X factor in this, put it like this: the Bayou Classic will mean something, because Southern now has to play Jackson State coming up in the the Soul Bowl, correct?
Correct.
That's the Soul Bowl, so that'll be played at Jackson State. Southern beat up on poor Virginia Lynchburg 58-7 this past Saturday, non-conference game. Southern's scheduling like an SEC teams, playing these lower division teams in November. But anyway, that's so it's a good win for Southern. That was their last home game of the regular season, and then they travel to Jackson State, and so Jackson State, that was a tough loss because, like you said, AD, you pointed it out, they sort of controlled their own destiny. Well, Alcorn State really has a tough schedule here these last couple weeks, because now they have to play Alabama A&M, and then they have to follow that up with a game against Jackson State. There's no sure ends. Even though Alcorn State is unbeaten at home. That's probably the best thing going for them, is that they're unbeaten at home. But don't sleep. If Jackson State were to somehow pull off an upset against Southern, they're looking at hosting these last 2 weeks. Jackson State they're hosting Southern and Alcorn State. I still think I still think their fate is in their hands. Just requires a little bit of help, not as much as maybe some other schools, but I think they still control their own destiny, don't you think?
Yeah. But both these teams control their own destiny. Whoever wins this weekend will be the front runner. It's just that simple, Bryan.
So how would you handicap, or how would you predict what this might look like over these last 2 to 3 weeks? Because I think you've got over in the West, Southern and Grambling, I think it's down to those two teams in the West. I think in the East, I'm call me crazy, AD, but I still think 4 of the 5 teams are still in the hunt. And I'm going off conference losses. Alcorn State now has a 1 loss, but you have Alabama State, Alabama A&M, and Jackson State, all with 2 losses. And all it takes is Alcorn State to trip up against A&M or Jackson State, and you've got a little bit of chaos situation in the East. Well, how do you think that'll play out?
The one good thing is looks like a lot of it will play out on the field, Bryan. There won't be a whole lot of scoreboard watching. Southern plays Grambling in the Bayou Classic. That weather's probably going to be right now is going to be the West representative in the championship game. You've got A&M and Alcorn playing each other this weekend. That winner will probably be the representative on the east side. Now, after this game, A&M has the easier game of the ones that's remaining. A&M plays Mississippi Valley State in 2 weeks. A&M will be heavily favored in that game. Jackson State plays Alcorn State. That's the Soul Bowl. That's a rival game. Throw the records out the window in that particular game, especially now that you've got a very upset Jackson State team that lost control of their own destiny, Bryan. So everything still has an opportunity to play itself out on the field. If I am going to take a guess right now who's going to be in the championship game, Bryan,
well, I didn't. Don't feel pressure to have to go that far. You don't have to make the prediction right now.
Hey, that's what we do. That's what we do. And we talk about each other when we're wrong, Bryan. So I'm gonna put it out there and see if you're gonna get the opportunity to talk about me. I'm gonna say A&M, and I'm gonna take the 2 hot teams. I'm gonna take A&M and Grambling right now, Bryan.
That's interesting, because as I'm looking, Alabama A&M has not had 2 good wins against 2 good opponents this year. The only time they've won 2 games in a row is when they beat Central State and they beat Texas Southern. Central State, a D2 team from the SIAC, Texas Southern winless this year. This is it. If Alabama A&M is to get to the championship game, it'll be on the merits of winning this game against Alcorn. Plain and simple. I hate to say it, but you blew it against Southern. You lost to Grambling, which I think that was a legit loss. Grambling beat them by 13. They held Alabama A&M to 10 points. As I'm scrolling through Alabama's A&M season, nobody has held them under 21 all year, except Grambling. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
I think that speaks volumes for Grambling's defense. But that's the only team that's held them under 21 points, which is their, they lost to Sanford squad. but they put 21 points up on the board. So this is it, because after that, you've got Mississippi Valley State at home. And so the realistic shot is, if you beat Alcorn, here's the thing. You beat Alcorn, then you have the tiebreaker over Alabama State, because Alabama State, they playing in terms of conference, they play Prairie View A&M. So if they were to beat Prairie View and finish with 2 losses, A&M would have the tiebreaker over them. If they beat Alcorn, they have the tiebreaker over them. And if Jackson State runs the table, they would have the tiebreaker over them. So the team that controls their destiny and has the opportunity, and this is what I'm sure Connell Maynor will be telling his guys all week. Fellas, you now control your own fate. If you want to get to the SWAC championship game, it's on you. You have to beat Alcorn. You've got to finish with 2 wins, period. You finish with 2 wins, you're in the SWAC championship game, period, point blank. And that's the best way you could sum it up right there. I hit it on the nail, right? Anything else I missed on the SWAC?
No, I think we about hit it all that we can, Brian.
All right, let's take a break, AD. When we come back, we get into talking about the Division II side of the black college sports world as we talk about the CIAA and the SIAC. You're listening to the BCSN Sports Wrap, our Week 11 wrap-up show. We'll be back right after these words.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
The Black College Sports Network is proud to partner with ComputerRatings.com. That's COMPUGHTER ratings.com for the upcoming college football season. ComputerRatings.com delivers rankings, game predictions, and statistics for hundreds of professional and collegiate teams. The key feature of ComputerRatings.com is the Versus Sports Simulator, which allows users to simulate any possible matchup and view the predicted scores along with a side-by-side stats analysis. Improve your odds by signing up for a subscription. Monthly, semi-yearly, and yearly subscriptions are available. For our listeners and viewers, use the promo code BCSN19 and get 15% off of your subscription at checkout. Visit www.computerratings.com. That's COMPUGHTER ratings.com.
This December 21st, the best in HBCU football will collide in Atlanta at the Celebration Bowl. MEAC versus SWAC. Champion versus champion. Only one team will rise above the rest and claim the coveted Celebration Bowl trophy. Come join the celebration at Mercedes-Benz Stadium this December. For more information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
It's like a loop machine. Going around town, people trying to get down.
Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap, our week number 11 wrap-up show in black college football. Brian Fulford and AD Drew here, reminding you, if you want to find us on Twitter, find Drew at BCSN Drew, BCSN DREW on Twitter. Find me at DRB365. Our webpage is www.mybcsn.net. It's where you can find our articles, our stories, anything that we post, top performers, blah, blah, blah. Broadcast. That's where you can also find our broadcast. Go to look at our games. We were at Edward Waters College this past weekend. We not only cover football, but we cover basketball too, as we had a pretty exciting doubleheader on Friday evening. The men and women of Edward Waters took on Florida Memorial, and that's an exciting program. Big things going on at Florida Memorial. Their football program will be reigniting or re-emerging in the 2020 season. So we will have a 52nd HBCU football team to bring into the fold. Anything I miss about our basketball broadcast that you want to mention, AD?
For those of you all who go on to the Edward Waters Twitter page or go on to our Black College Sports Network Twitter page, please excuse my excitement on the highlight that has been put out there on a monster dunk during that game, Bryan.
Well, it fit in nicely with the play-by-play. You know, the guy who did the play-by-play, he did a pretty solid job for his first game of the year.
Would that be you, Bryan?
Well, I know him.
Yeah, Bryan was on the play-by-play. I was on the color, and my description of that dunk was very colorful.
It was, but it fit in perfectly with the play, which was an outstanding play. A game that Edward Waters, they trailed by as many as 19 in the second half and found themselves within 3 points with probably under 2 minutes, I think, maybe a minute.
Under 20 seconds ago, it was a 3-point ball game.
Really? It was 20 seconds?
3 or 4 point ball game. It was a 4-point ball game with under a minute to go.
Okay. Well, so yeah, that is good stuff, and it was a good game. Great, and I tell you, the women were exciting to watch. I mean, you did a great job calling that game. I joined in somewhere in the second quarter, but the women, the Edward Waters women, played a great game. Very fun style of basketball to watch. So. I don't know, wherever you're at, if you get an opportunity and you can go watch one of the doubleheaders, the men and women's doubleheaders, you owe it to yourself to go watch 4 hours of good college basketball. Hopefully it's good college basketball. You know, everyone's not equal, but hopefully you'll see a good atmosphere, between the cheerleaders, the band, the pep bands, the mascots. I mean, it's a great experience. So
the fraternities, the sororities,
exactly. You know, just and there are some great atmospheres and some great arenas in Black college football. So we look forward to celebrating them and talking about them a little bit more in the upcoming weeks. But let's finish as we wrap up week number 11. We got to move over to the SIAC, where we had a game in the West Division and a game in the East Division that would determine who would represent in the SIAC championship game. Let's start over on the east side, where it was the 30th annual Fountain City Classic in Columbus, Georgia, between Albany State and Fort Valley State. Now, we know that both of these teams have suffered a loss to Savannah State, who has gone about the business of claiming the unofficial SIAC East championship, as they should.
They are officially the East champions. They just cannot represent the East in the championship game.
And again, I am going to call boo, hiss, boo on, I don't know if it's the NCAA or the SIAC or both, whatever it is that prevents Savannah State, who moved down in class, to be able to participate. If you move them down in class, if all their paperwork was good and they were eligible to move their team down to compete in games and those games count, Savannah State should have been given an opportunity to not only play for the SIAC championship game, but they should also been considered in the Super 2 regionals, because I think they are a very it's an intriguing story. They would have been an intriguing story going into the playoffs. I wonder
where would have been a tough out.
If they were eligible, AD, where do you think they might sit in terms of rankings? Just can you guess? Can you just maybe give me a number? Any thoughts?
Albany State. They would be ranked where Albany State is currently ranked right now.
And Albany State is ranked, what, 8th or 9th in the Super 2 regionals?
Albany State was 9 this past week, going into this weekend. So that would be Savannah State, in my opinion. Okay, fair enough. So this game, obviously the biggest thing, the biggest storyline in this ball game, Fort Valley State comes into this playing their second game without Slade Jarman, their senior quarterback, who really, he was the reason when they had won 6 games in a row after opening the season, losing to Miles and Florida A&M. They won 6 games in a row heading into the contest against Savannah State. They were on everybody's radar, but unfortunately, without Slade Jarman, an entirely different team, and Albany State just took advantage of that, winning 42-6. And the Golden Rams, with that win, they're now 23-7 against Fort Valley State since this rivalry game moved to Columbus in 1990. So with the win, Albany State has a 2-game winning streak heading into the SIAC championship, where they will host this year. Instead of traveling to Miles as they did last year, they will actually be hosting this championship match at 2 p.m. at the ASU Coliseum. And so I don't know if there's much to talk about on this game, AD. Any thoughts on this Albany State, Fort Valley State game? No, it was never really a contest. We all know that Fort Valley is a totally different team with or without Slade Jarman. So without Slade Jarman, they were 30 points worse than Albany State on this particular weekend.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for, obviously, the next quarterback in waiting, or the next quarterback who wins the job. You won't have that hanging over your head, because, it'll be you. You'll be the man. And so hopefully Fort Valley State is able to, find a suitable quarterback and able to, get back into contention, as they had a good season. It was a good season. Finished 6-4, but again, snake bitten by one key injury. And look, man, that's football, right? As they say, that's why they play the game.
Yes, and for Slade Jarman, for your last 2 years to be injury-riddled and you not be able to complete your last 2 years of eligibility, I really feel for this young man.
Yes, yeah, and I'm happy that at least he was able to start the season and get his team to a certain point like that. It does suck that it ended the way it did, but hopefully there's bigger and brighter things up the road for him. If he continues playing football, maybe he will find an opportunity somewhere, somewhere where he has an opportunity to continue playing. Let's go over to the west side, where the defending SIAC champions, the Miles Golden Bears, this time they're the team on the road, traveling to Tuskegee, Alabama, for a little ball and parlay, and it's homecoming at Tuskegee. Now, AD, how would you summarize, I give you maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute at the max, describe Tuskegee's homecoming? I mean, a lot of people claim to have the greatest homecoming on earth and all this other stuff. But what is it about Tuskegee homecoming that is really, that, as the kids say, lit?
Because it is lit. Let's start off with the Shed, Brian. If you've ever been to Tuskegee University for a game, we have what is known as the Shed. It's known throughout black college football. It's where the band plays from, and it's the student section. And the acoustics of the Shed, from the band playing up under the Shed, just illuminates the whole stadium. And for those of you all who've never been to Cleve Abbott Alumni Bowl, it is literally a overhang over the stadium. It's the only place in the stadium that has shade, and it's to shade the band. And it's kind of like those overhangs that you go to some baseball fields, Brian, where you see the metal aluminum overhang over the stadium, over the bleachers to keep the sun off the fans. That's essentially all it is, but it's a tradition, and it's the atmosphere that Shed brings. Then you have everybody just sitting on the hill, fans just sitting on the hill, and that stadium is the only stadium, Brian, where you can actually tailgate inside of the stadium, Brian. Did you hear me? You could tailgate in the stadium. That means drive your RV, drive your van, drive your pickup truck with the grill on the back into the stadium and watch the game from the tailgating area, Brian. It is just an electric atmosphere. 25 to 30,000 strong annually.
So barbecue smoke going on at the same time that there's a football game being played, maybe
and some other
50 yards
away. And there's some other kind of smoke going on also. But yes.
Whoa. We won't talk about that. Between the smell of the catfish and the ribs and the chicken and everything else, Are you gonna say it blends right in, huh? You don't even recognize
it just adds to the flavor of the meat. That's all we're gonna say. and I mean,
well said. That's great. Adds to the flavor of the meat.
And then you just go from this person's trailer to this person's RV to this person's cooler, and everybody's just sharing it and giving. And we're not even going to talk about the halftime performances of the bands and the fifth quarter that goes on to the sixth quarter.
You've gone over your 1 minute allotted time talking about how great Tuskegee's homecoming is.
My bad.
No, it's Brian,
not to be cutting you off, but we need a sponsor for Sports Wrap and Black College Sports Network next year, so that we can hit a homecoming every week next year. That there is a homecoming. Somebody get out here and help us. We need a hotel sponsor. We need a rental car sponsor, and we just need a tailgating sponsor, so that we can go and really report this and get into this for our fans, Brian.
Yeah, it is interesting seeing other people kind of doing the stuff that we had proposed to be doing all of maybe 3-4 years ago. But anyway, I'm gonna bring it back to the games before I get talking about stuff I'm not supposed to be talking about. Miles, traveling to Tuskegee, and for the now I tell you what, it's interesting. How long has the SIAC been doing divisions, or how long have they broken up into divisions? Is that seems like since about maybe 2011?
That would sound about right. I was going to say maybe early teens, 10, 11, somewhere up in there is when the SIAC broke up into divisions. I'm trying to remember what school came in playing football that caused them to break up into divisions. But keep talking. I'm going to see if I can. When Central State came into the conference, I believe is where they broke up into divisions, Brian.
Okay. Well, I set that up to just, as sort of a setup to say that for the second straight year and the 5th time since 2011, the Golden Bears are going to be the team playing in the SIAC championship game, as they beat Tuskegee 20-6, dismantled them, as the Miles Athletic Department described it, gave Miles the Western Division crown, and gives them an opportunity in a rematch of the championship game from last year against Albany State. The Golden Rams, it's funny, this is the 5th time that
Golden
Miles...
Bears.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on. You jumped the gun here. Let me set it up here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
The Golden Rams have been the team Miles has faced in each of its 5 SIAC championship games. That's what I was going for. That's what I was pointing out. That's all right. I mean, look, you got Golden Rams, Golden Bears, Miles,
Golden
Albany
Tigers.
State, Golden Tigers. Everybody's golden. It's like Jill Scott. She must be an SIAC fan. Everything's golden. So Miles improved to 8-2, 5-1 in the West. Tuskegee finishes with another 5-5 season. They were 5-5 last year, finished 5-5 this year, 4-2 in conference. I'm sure there will be continued. What's the word? There will be continued conversations, I'm sure, about what's wrong with Tuskegee. Fair or unfair. I know there is, you are an alum, and you probably hear from a lot of people. The one thing I commonly hear about is the need for more alums or more money to come into the program for Tuskegee to improve everything. Not only the field, but facilities, so on and so forth. And so if Tuskegee fans, Tuskegee alums, if you all are tired of losing the Miles, if you're tired of not competing for the SIAC championship, well, there's going to have to be something you guys do financially to give back, especially to the athletic department, especially to the football program, and help them catch up, because they're getting passed by. Is that a fair assessment, AD? You're an alum. Is that fair?
That is.
I just want to make sure I'm being fair here.
It's more than fair, and I'll throw something in. Tuskegee's demise has come with the improved facilities at Miles College. About 4 or 5 years ago, up under Coach Ruffin, Miles made the investment and improved their on-campus facilities, and that was when you saw the shift of power in the state of Alabama when it comes to these 2 HBCUs, Brian. No better way to put it. Both of these are private schools. Miles is a little bit cheaper than Tuskegee to attend, dollars and cents wise, but they also have the urban area of Birmingham in their favor, and they have a better facility than Tuskegee has at its current point in time. The only thing that still sells Tuskegee is the name, is the tradition. But given today's athletes, they really do not care about the name on the front of the jersey as much.
And that's sad. That really is sad that has been lost on them. But, hey, I mean, you have to adjust. That's all I can say. Schools have to adjust. I'm not really sure. Let me see. I wanted to point out, so in terms of this game, Miles led 10-3 in the ball game before Jamarcus Ezel gave up a pick 6 to Kentavious Floyd. I hope I said that first name right. Who basically had a 97-yard pick 6, pushing the lead, Miles' lead, to 17-3 with about 3 minutes and 33 seconds left before halftime. And pretty much, Miles would get another field goal in the second half, but but their defense was really stout. I mean, Miles' defense has really played well. They had 4 sacks and 3 interceptions against Tuskegee, and they forced Tuskegee into 2 field goals, and of course, they had the pick 6. So that's the 3 times that Tuskegee was in the red zone. They actually only scored 6 points, and they gave up 6 points. So that's pretty much how that game went. Pretty dominating performance by them.
And the one thing that I'm going to say is sidebar to the game, Bryan. If I don't know if it's on your Twitter feed, but on my Twitter feed, there has been a bunch of trash talking by the Miles faithful out there, and deservedly so.
Really?
But
okay.
Yeah, I mean they've been talking trash. Hey, they won 2 in a row. They deserve to talk. They deserve to talk a little bit, and it pains me to say that. But let's keep it fair. Let's keep it fun. And we'll see y'all in 363 more days.
Yeah, this is interesting how that works out, right? I mean, the team that just interesting how that works out. That's all I'm just going to say. Miles, maybe, I don't know, maybe you move to that place in time and place in space where you can do that to people. But show some composure, act like you've been there before, Miles. I mean, we get it. We get it.
They were there last year, Bryan, unfortunately.
Right. Well, that's why I said act like you've been there before. Just a couple other notes from some other games in the SIAC. It should be noted that Kentucky State, with a 34-26 win, Kentucky State would actually finish the year 6-3, 3-3 in conference. They still have 1 game left to play.
Yes, in St. Louis.
Interesting. In St. Louis, your hometown, against Lincoln, Missouri, and already though, Kentucky State with a plus 500. I mean, finishing the season above 500 was a major accomplishment for Kentucky State. And don't forget, Kentucky State, not only in these 6 wins, 3-3 in the conference, but they got wins over Jackson State and Robert Morris, 2 FCS schools. Now, we were just debating about what would it take for a Division II school to win a Black College National Championship over an FCS team. Well, I think part of it is if you had played and beaten some FCS teams, obviously, I mean, Kentucky State needed to not have lost so many games. Well, I mean, they only lost 3 games, but let's just say if Kentucky State had only lost to, I'm just going to throw it out there, when they lost to Tuskegee, let's just say they didn't lose to anybody else on their schedule. We might be really talking about Kentucky State as a viable, player in the whole discussion, would we not? I mean, hell, at that point in the season, they would definitely be ranked in our top 5. They probably would be 2 or 3. I mean, they did lose to Miles 17-0, so they would have beaten Miles. I'm saying in this little fictional scenario I'm bringing up, but it's just so cool, AD. When I think back to SIAC Media Day, the 2 schools that I came away, the 2 new coaches that I really came away impressed with was Charlie Jackson of Kentucky State and Sean Quinn of Savannah State. And
two Coach of the Year candidates, Bryan.
Oh, definitely 2 Coach of the Year
candidate.
Exactly. I mean, if we only do 5 nominees, and I think it's fair that if we only did 4 or 5, they definitely are probably in the mix of the 2. I think as great of a story as Savannah State is, Kentucky State is just as good. I mean, I don't know if I got to go back and look and see if Kentucky State has not had a winning. How long it's been since they had a quote unquote winning season, but I know it's 1998 for Savannah State. Kentucky might be at least the past decade. It's definitely been some years.
I don't think they even had a winning season the year they went to the SIAC championship game, if I remember correctly.
No, they did not. I know that
4 wins that year.
Correct.
4 or 5.
No, you are 100%. Yeah, you're 100% right. They did not have a winning season that particular year. So props to Kentucky State in what they did. The other scores, some of the other scores that weekend or this past weekend, obviously we broadcast Savannah State versus Edward Waters. I mean, they pretty much handled business that particular game. But also there was a heck of a shootout taking place in Atlanta, Georgia, between Morehouse and Clark. That final score, as I pull that one up, AD here, 40-39, as Morehouse would beat Clark Atlanta 40-39. Clark would finish winless on the year, 0-10, 0-6 overall. Morehouse would finish 4-6, 2-4 overall. A great crowd. I mean, 8,000 people showed up for this ball game at Morehouse. There were, Clark had a 17-15 lead, so you had 32 points scored in this contest. I'm trying to I'm just kind of peeping stats here. It's pretty much one of those situations where Clark never could. I'm trying to see, did they ever have a lead outside of the initial score and the end of the first quarter? That was the last time Clark had a lead. Clark had a lead 17-15 at the end of the first quarter. They opened the game 7-0 with a lead, and then after that, they did trade points a little bit in the second quarter. But a pretty good night for both teams. I was just quick browsing here. Okay, nothing too major in terms of the statistics, but I think anything else left in the SIAC, anything regarding the standings or anything that you wanted to comment on, AD, before we move over to the CIAA?
No, Albany State obviously is in the playoff mix right now. They're sitting at number 9. They'll move up to at least 8 in the next poll, probably due to the loss of Virginia Union and West Florida, who is ahead of them. Question is, can Miles, with a victory over Albany State, sneak into the number 9 slot, which is where they would need to be in order to get to the playoffs? You'll catch more of my analysis on that on my weekly Division II playoff spotlight that I have written for the last 2 weeks.
The Black College Sports Network is proud to partner with ComputerRatings.com. That's COMPUGHTER ratings.com for the upcoming college football season. ComputerRatings.com delivers rankings, game predictions, and statistics for hundreds of professional and collegiate teams. The key feature of ComputerRatings.com is the Versus Sports Simulator, which allows users to simulate any possible matchup and view the predicted scores along with a side-by-side stats analysis. Improve your odds by signing up for a subscription. Monthly, semi-yearly, and yearly subscriptions are available. For our listeners and viewers, use the promo code BCSN19 and get 15% off of your subscription at checkout. Visit www.computerratings.com. That's COMPUGHTER ratings.com.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Cover's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeaversVoice.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
This December 21st, the best in HBCU football will collide in Atlanta at the Celebration Bowl. MEAC versus SWAC. Champion versus champion. Only one team will rise above the rest and claim the coveted Celebration Bowl trophy. Come join the celebration at Mercedes-Benz Stadium this December. For more information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
Well said. Okay, so let's move over to the CIAA, where the Northern Division had already been decided. Bowie State clinched it last week, and then they would put a little ice cream cherry on top of that by getting a 60-21 win over Elizabeth City State. So Bowie State finishes the regular season 10-0, and of course begin the long discussion by a lot of people as to what it will take and how can it happen, or how would it happen for Bowie State to clinch or be voted or considered the Black College National Champions for 2019. So the scenarios over in the South were Fayetteville State had to win or Shaw had to lose in order for Fayetteville State to advance. Shaw could advance if they won and Fayetteville State lost. Okay? That's what had to happen. So let's start with Shaw St. Augustine first. The game would actually go back and forth until it's funny, these two teams play in the same stadium, if I'm not mistaken. They're crosstown rivals. So it's called the Raleigh Classic. And so St. Augustine, they would actually go back and forth in this game, but it would be Shaw that would actually hold off St. Augustine for the second consecutive year in this game. There were 3 lead changes throughout the second half, and a 2-yard touchdown pass from Torrin Campbell to Kivanta Moses with 4:48 to play gave Shaw their 24-21 lead, and that's a game that we were looking at, trying to figure out how that game was going to finish. AD Campbell threw 3 touchdown passes, and he threw 2 of them to Moses. And Shaw would sit at 6-4 for the first time since 2013, and 5-2 or better in the CIAA for the first time since 2011. Any thoughts on that, or you want me to just go right into the next game?
No, let's get the next game, then we'll come back.
Okay, so once that game was decided, and I think as we were watching and scoreboard watching and reporting during our broadcast, at the time that we saw that game go final, I think Shaw either had a lead or maybe had just surrendered the lead to Fayetteville State at that point in the game. The game was tied at 17 heading into the fourth quarter. So obviously, any Shaw Bears fans were definitely excited and thinking of what might possibly come. And then the Stevie Green show would kick in. Well, check that. not the Stevie Green show. It'd actually be the Darnell Walker show, as he would have a pair of rushing touchdowns in the fourth quarter that would give the Broncos the 31-17 win. Stevie Green, though, did carry the ball 25 times for 122 yards and 1 touchdown, but it was an interesting game for Fayetteville State, to say the least, as they secured their third consecutive Southern Division championship. Of course, the last 2 years, they've lost those games, the championship games, to Bowie State, I believe. Is that who they've lost the last 2 years to?
That would be correct, Brian.
That would be correct. So we get Fayetteville State versus Bowie State, number 3. And what's interesting, AD, the last 2 years in the regular season, Fayetteville State and Bowie have not met in the regular season. Kind of interesting how this whole scheduling thing works out. But, okay, so now your thoughts on, how that scenario played out. And, here's Fayetteville State with a third opportunity to beat Bowie State.
Question is third time going to be the charm, Brian? Fayetteville State, pretty much took control of that game in the fourth quarter, where Shaw had to struggle to pull out the victory against Winston-Salem State, Brian. So, given the familiarity of these two teams, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, Fayetteville State didn't even show up to the game last year. Am I correct about that, Brian?
I will agree. I wasn't there, but in just looking at scores,
I don't think Fayetteville was there either.
Yeah, just looking at scores, you couldn't have been there, because I think they got beat by about 50 to 20 something, and I'm talking low 20 somethings. Right.
So, I do expect this Fayetteville State team to compete more, but no one has really been able to slow down this Bowie State team this particular weekend, this particular year, Brian. So, it's going to be interesting. It's kind of ironic that we're seeing rematches in the Division II ranks for these for both conferences, Brian. I really think that's interesting. And neither one of these teams face each other in the regular season. I think that's the one good thing about it, because of the schedules. This is a first-time matchup for these two teams this year.
Well, I don't. It remains to be seen as to whether that's a good thing or bad thing. And I think we'll talk a little bit later in the week as we do a preview show for not only the CIAA championship game but the SIAC championship game, and we can kind of talk about or look at the history and say, is it a good thing that these teams are playing each other again? And especially when you don't have any change in outcomes. That's the part that I think. That's the part that always is interesting. I'll just keep it at that, because I think you want the best team to win, especially as it relates to who has playoff opportunities. I mean, last year we mentioned over in the SIAC, it was Miles, their win hurt Albany State's chances of getting to the playoffs last year. Didn't really matter this year, as Bowie was already a pretty good team. And so when they won, they still were hosting a playoff game. So I don't think there was any ill effects then. But you didn't have, as you do this year, you have two CIAA teams in the mix for a playoff spot this year. And so let's just see how it plays out, before I answer whether it's good or bad or not. Let's talk about that matchup in the state of Virginia. between Virginia Union and Virginia State. Virginia Union hosting this one. Last year, Union won this game 46-19. Virginia State has won 6 of the last 10. Virginia State has won 6 of the last 10. Virginia State has won 7 of the last 8. My numbers didn't sound right there. Let me rephrase that. The last 10 games that these two teams have played, Virginia State is 6-4. So what's interesting is the last 2 seasons that this game was played at Virginia State, it was a 1-point. The game was decided by 1 point. In 2015 or 2017, Virginia State won 40-39. In 2015, Virginia Union won 28-27. So we already knew there might be a close game or a shootout. We didn't know, AD, we were going to get what we got. And I'm telling you, if you were in attendance, I think you went through every emotion, good and bad. And no matter who you were rooting for, if you were rooting for Virginia State, you definitely had some, yay, we're up 17-3 at one point with about 3 minutes and 23 seconds left in the third quarter. A 27-yard field goal put Virginia State up 17-3. You're feeling really confident and comfortable until Virginia Union scores a 31-yard touchdown pass, Khalid Morris to Jaron Birch. That cut the deficit to 17-10. And then the fourth quarter started off, and it looked like it was going to be all Virginia Union. Bryan Epps, like that first name, had a 45-yard fumble recovery with 12:42 to play, a scoop and score, and Virginia Union would tie the game up at 17. Several minutes later, to be exact, 4:32 remaining in the ball game, it would be Tobias Taylor, the big-time running back for Virginia Union. He would get a 26-yard touchdown run to cap a 12-play, 73-yard drive, and now Virginia Union led for the first time not the first time, not since the early part of the second quarter when Union went up 3-0. That's the last time Union led prior to going up 24-17. But Virginia State would come back and answer as Cordero Cook would lead the Trojans on a 9-play drive, 68 yards, capped off with a 36-yard touchdown pass to Javon LaPierre with 1 minute and 27 seconds remaining. Virginia State would tie the ball game up at 24-24. But it's not over. Virginia Union would give the ball back to Virginia State after going 3 and out. Virginia State would find themselves in a situation to kick a field goal at maybe a second or two left at the end of regulation that would have won the ball game. And guess what the kicker did? The kickers did what some young college kickers do in pressure situations. They miss. And so Nickel Woolfolk missed what would have been the game-winning field goal attempt at the end of regulation. And so we get the greatest word in football. The greatest words in football are what, AD?
Overtime.
Overtime, more football, please. And so, yes, that's what you get.
Unless you're the referees.
Unless you're the referees, exactly. Well, Virginia State started overtime first, and they would end up getting a 34-yard field goal from Woolfolk, who made up for the miss earlier, and it was 27-24. Virginia State would have the ball. And after a couple of plays that really went nowhere, they end up deciding to, first, second, third down doesn't go well, and they come up with a fourth down play. And here's where things go wonky, AD, because, let me see if I can make sure I describe this properly. probably maybe a handful of seconds left on the clock, maybe 3 seconds left on the clock. Well, it didn't matter because it was overtime, actually, as I say that. Virginia Union sends out Jefferson Souza. Now, Jefferson Souza, just for perspective, is Virginia State's junior kicker. He is also the best kicker in Division II football in field goal percentage. Made 15 of 16 this season, 938, 93.8% is his field goal average, the best in the country, hands down. We've
Bryan, please say that again before you describe this situation any further. He is the what kicker in Division II football?
The leading kicker in field goal percentage, meaning he has made 15 of the 16 field goals attempted in 9 games leading up to this game. And I should note, AD, let me see. As I browse through, let's see, he already kicked a 27-yard field goal at that point in the ball game. He had already made a PAT. 1, 2, 3 PATs he had already made. And so he's coming into this with an opportunity to kick and tie the ball game. But that's not what happens. As the holder gets the ball, all we see is the holder get the ball. We see the holder stand up, and we see the holder throw the ball towards the sideline. And by our visual accounts, we don't see anybody out there in his field of area. In fact, I think that ball may have sailed out of bounds. Unbelievably, game over. Virginia Union took the ball out of the hands of the nation's best field goal kicker and went with a trick play to the placeholder on the special teams unit. And I don't know. I give you an opportunity at this point, AD, to jump in and tell me something you saw or tell me something different.
Well, from what I was able, and I had to really go back and watch the film, this was supposed to be the old water bucket play, except they were running it on the field goal unit.
Explain the water bucket play. Explain the water bucket play.
The water bucket play is when somebody runs on the field late, looking like they're getting ready to go, like they don't know where to line up at, and then they run off like, hey, you got too many players on the field. Or sometimes some coaches they'll run 2 players in and 3 players run off in the mass confusion, except one player does not run all the way off the field. He stops about a foot or 2 short of the sideline and acts like he's talking to the coach while the coach is giving him the business about why were you on the field. It's a hoax. It's a gimmick. He's on the field. We know he's on the field. And what you're doing, you're hoping that you catch the defense sleeping and that they do not cover this guy thinking that he is off the field and not in the play. And as soon as the ball is high, he takes off down the sideline and you throw the ball out there to him. Well, that's what they did on this play. The Tobias Taylor was actually – he was probably as deep as the kicker was on the sideline instead of being a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, I guess to give a little bit of a bigger disguise to the play. So when the kicker takes the ball on the fake snap, and obviously Virginia State is rushing in the attempt to block the kicker, he throws the ball to where the receiver is supposed to be. Problem is, Tobias Taylor, the receiver, did not take off at the snap and never crossed the line of scrimmage, and the ball probably sailed down the field about 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. So to the naked eye, it's like, who the heck is he throwing the ball to? Once you go back and watch the play again, it was the water bucket play that had a hole in the bucket. We'll just leave it like that.
Not since Chuck Pagano called for a fake field goal or a fake punt against New England on Monday Night Football several years ago, and see it poorly executed by Pat McAfee, and who was the punter at the time. I haven't seen a more bewildering special teams play. It's like, I don't understand, and I've been scurrying looking for a quote from Dr. Parker or anybody. I can't understand why you don't look. Your kickers are kickers. Sometimes they make some, sometimes they miss. But you've got the nation's best kicker. That's supposed to be an advantage. He's won games for you this year. He's actually scored points for you in this game. And the fact that you don't go away, you go away from him. I mean, the rules are set up so you only get 2 kicks in first and second overtime. After that, it's all 2-point conversions anyway. So if you were going to use that play, why would you use that play on a fake field goal attempt? You know, that's my big question. I don't understand the decision making, and it's disappointing on so many levels because it's so anticlimactic. I mean, but had he missed the field goal, the same result would have occurred. It would have just seemed less dramatic. So I don't know. Maybe there were some issues going on that we weren't made aware of or that I have seen come up yet. Regardless, Virginia State wins. They knock essentially Virginia Union out of the Region 2 playoff discussion. And now, AD, the question becomes, Virginia State is 7th, I believe, going in after week 2. How high could they move up? After there were some other losses in the region, so how high can they move up?
Virginia State will move up to 6. West Florida, who was immediately ahead of them at number 6, lost to the number 2 rated Valdosta State this past week. So we had 3 losses in the top 10. The number 16 in West Florida, the number 8 team in Virginia Union, and the number 10 team in West Georgia, all lost this week. So I expect Virginia State to move up to 6. The thing is, can Virginia State hold at number 6? Because they will need to hold at number 6 so that the SIAC champion does not bump them out of the playoffs. Right now, there's a good chance that the SIAC champion, who is Albany State, will be number 7. If Albany State is number 7 and finishes the season at number 7, I think we're going to see 3 HBCUs in the Division II playoffs for the first time in a while that we've got 3 teams in the playoffs. The question is, will Miles be able to get in if they win and defeat Albany State? Can Miles get to number 9, which would bump out the number 17? Would that number 17 then be dropped to Virginia State because they have an unplanned bye this week and bump Virginia State out? Now, let's talk about CIAA team. Fayetteville. Bowie is in. Brian, Bowie is in. Win or lose, Bowie is in the playoffs. Bowie wins, they host the first round. If Bowie loses, they could potentially knock Virginia State out of the playoffs because Bowie would not drop down beyond number 7. Bowie will remain probably 5 or 6 with a loss, but they could potentially bump Virginia State down and replace Virginia State in the bottom half of the poll. Virginia State would probably not move up even despite a Bowie loss. The second team would have to lose for Virginia State to move up any higher by sitting idle a week. And the one thing that I notice about the pollsters, I'm not going to say they punish teams that sit at home for a week, but they reward the teams that play is probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can get that. Is there anybody rooting for Fayetteville State to win in the CIAA over Bowie? I mean, who benefits from Fayetteville State? I mean, does Fayetteville State benefit from winning the CIAA championship?
Fayetteville State could sneak into that number 9 slot. I expect Fayetteville State to be just on the outside looking in. I would have to go back and look at the RPIs to see where they are. There's a possibility, Brian, and I'm just looking at this, not looking deep into it. There's a possibility Fayetteville State could debut at number 10 next week with the losses that were ahead of them. Virginia Union would drop out of the polls. West Georgia would drop out of the polls. West Florida will stay in the poll but drop behind Virginia State. Somebody new is going to go in at that number 10 slot. It could be Fayetteville State. I doubt if it's going to be Miles, but it could be Fayetteville State. If Fayetteville State comes into that next week's poll at the number 10 slot, yes, Fayetteville State will get in with a win, Brian.
Wow, the scenarios are definitely daunting, to say the least. I was going to say two other scenarios we need to look at. Well, not different scenarios, but two other teams with playoff aspirations. West Virginia State, they won this past weekend in a blowout. They must beat Notre Dame of Ohio to get in. It's that simple. Well, that's a tall task.
Yeah, well, it's cut and dry. It's black and white. Also, Langston is back into the hunt for the Sooner Athletic Conference title, with the Ottawa of Arizona having lost this past weekend. So for Langston, they must get into the top 16 in the nation in order to make the playoffs. And Langston was sitting at 22 this past week. I do expect them to move up into the top 20. They've got 2 weeks to get to, they've got 1 week to get into the top 16.
Wow. All right. Just to now, I'm gonna. I know you like to give your votes for the poll, for our top 5 poll, but I'm gonna ask you to not do that for this podcast, and we'll hold our votes, submit them, and then when we do the reveal, that's when we can kind of go over who we individually voted for. But I just wanted to go through just a recap of our poll and just kind of talk about winners and losers. So I'm going to start over on the D1 under D1 side. It's very rare. I know we've had weeks when 4 teams have lost in this poll, 3 teams have lost in this poll. Surprisingly, all 5 teams in the top 5 under D1 won. Bowie State won. They are number 1. Number 2, Miles College won. Number 3, Savannah State won. Number 4, Langston won. And number 5, Virginia State won. So again, no changes there. However, over on the D1 side, we had 3 teams lose. We still have Florida A&M at number 1, who had a bye. And then suffering losses was Alcorn State in overtime, North Carolina A&T, who's number 3, and Bethune-Cookman, number 4. Grambling, number 5. They actually won, so they were the only team to win.
I've got one question.
Sure.
About these polls, and this is not directed at you, but Jay Walker, what the hell are you thinking about not putting FAMU at number one? I'm done.
Well, look, again, some people, and he's not the only one, because the other poll that I saw at Alcorn at number one was the Black College Sports page. They had Alcorn at 1, and probably and look, let's be real. The week that Florida A&M played North Carolina A&T, in our poll, FAMU was number 3, A&T was number 1. There are a lot of people who vote, and there are a lot of people with polls who they simply move people up one spot. When you win, you move up a spot if the team in front of you lost. Rarely do you see major jumping over people. We and a lot of other people, when our polls where votes were tallied, FAMU had moved from maybe 3 or 4 in a lot of people's polls to all of a sudden they had jumped number 1. They jumped Alcorn State. All that happened in their poll, all that happened in Jay Walker's poll, is that once the team who was number 1 got beat, the team who was number 2 moved right up a spot. So that's what
Brian,
happened. Yeah,
Brian. This is his new poll. Alcorn just lost, and he still has them at number 1.
No, he doesn't. That's not the new poll. That's not his new poll. I know what you're talking about because I saw that on Twitter as well. That's not his new poll. Can't be. When was it released?
I saw it today. I thought it had today's date on it. I may be wrong.
No, it says we need to shake up our HBCU power rankings. This was our top 5 on Saturday morning. Who deserves to be number 1 today? And today meaning Sunday. So he had his previous poll was Alcorn 1, FAMU 2, A&T 3, South Carolina State 4, Southern 5. Obviously, Alcorn State lost, A&T lost. It would seem that FAMU, if they're number 2, that they would move up to number 1. South Carolina State was on a bye. Southern played Virginia Lynchburg. So anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. But it'll be interesting to see how high Grambling moves. Don't give me your vote, but who's maybe somebody you're considering though? Who outside of the 5 teams might we see in the upcoming D1 poll? Can you think of somebody that we might see?
Southern may sneak back in.
Okay, Southern may, even though Southern's on a bye. What about Alabama A&M? What any love, any opportunity for Alabama A&M to jump into the poll for the first time?
A&M has to get one more before they get my vote.
Oh, okay. All right. One more before they get the vote. Any chance we see South Carolina State? You think is there an opportunity we might see South Carolina State jump back in, even though they were on a bye?
Yes.
Any thoughts on, let's see, Alcorn, A&T, and Bethune, 3 schools lost. How many of those 3 will you predict still be in our poll when week number 12 is released?
One of those 3 will be there.
Okay. One of those 3. Interesting. Okay. That's it. Is there anything we missed? I don't think there was anything else significant that we missed. I will say this though, because I put this out on Twitter. I put a Twitter poll together real early Sunday morning, and I'll kind of give you the unofficial vote so far. I put like 2 or 3 days on this, so hopefully this will go out. I said, what is the biggest surprise from the Week 11 games? Biggest surprise from Week 11 games was, the votes were Morgan State beats North Carolina A&T, Delaware State beats Bethune-Cookman, Alcorn lost in overtime to Grambling, and I put the ending to Virginia State-Virginia Union game. So far, with 38% of the votes, Morgan State beating North Carolina A&T is leading. AD, did you vote on this? Or if you didn't, what is your thought? Who would you vote for?
Yes, I did vote on that.
Okay.
I voted for the Delaware State victory over Bethune.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so you went Del State over Bethune.
Yes, that was that was the one that surprised me the most, because that was Del State's first conference win of the year, if not their first win of the year. Number one, you've got Bethune with pretty much everything to lose. Morgan State up on the Ty Wheatley has been progressively getting better. Morgan State pulled off the upset last year, so although it was not expected, we've seen that before. The Virginia State game, I can't blame the coach for having the balls to go for the victory. What I can blame him for is the play call he used to go for the victory. And which one am I missing, Brian?
Did you mention Alcorn and Grambling?
Oh, that did not surprise me at all. Grambling has been streaking. Alcorn has won a couple of games by the skin of their teeth this year. That was probably the least surprising of the five that we had on there.
Okay. All right, good deal. Well, that is a Twitter poll at MyBCSN1. Make sure to share it, retweet it. Love to see what kind of thoughts, and it'll be interesting to see over the next day and a half whether we will have in second place is the ending to the Virginia State-Virginia Union game. So if anybody is going to win that poll other than Morgan beats North Carolina A&T, I think it would be the ending of the Virginia State-Virginia Union game. So, all right, that's going to do it for this podcast. Players of the week, no players of the week right now. We will give those a little bit later. We've got SIAC and CIAA championship shows to do and to get ready for. We will drop those as individual shows. So we will do a CIAA championship show, a SIAC championship show, along with our normal week number 12 preview show. Busy week for us. Any last words, AD? Anything I missed? Anything you want to plug?
Just going to be a busy week in sports. We've got basketball season going full swing in addition to championship football. What a great time at Black College Sports, Brian. Volleyball championships this weekend in our conferences also. So we've got a lot going on in the HBCU sports.
Well said. Make sure to visit our webpage, mybcsn.net. Find us on Facebook. Find our Black College Sports Network page at MyBCSN1, the number 1, as well as the HBCU BCSN Sports Wrap Facebook page. And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram using at MyBCSN1, the number 1. And for AD Drew, who you can reach him on Twitter at BCSN Drew. I am Brian Fulford at DRB365. We appreciate you listening to our show. We hope you enjoyed the craziness of Week 11, and you are ready for Week number 12 coming up. Thank you for listening. Take care. God bless, and we'll talk to you later this week.
Holla.
The real reason why I went after Comcast and Charter, it didn't have anything to do with my cable networks. It didn't. What happened was a gentleman wanted to do the Black College Sports Network in partnership with the HBCUs, and Comcast did not accept it, and that would have made a lot of money for these black colleges. Absolutely. And it would have educated the Black College Sports Network. This is what he wanted to do. That would have educated a lot of black kids. And when they didn't do that, That's when I came off the bench and said, okay, I'm going to light you up like a Christmas tree. Okay? That was the real reason why I got into it, was when I saw what happened with the Black College Sports Network, which I don't know. I just knew that these black, all right? I knew that these black colleges were going to benefit, and these black kids were going to get the education that they deserved and not have to pay.
But you stay hard.